This is the Messiah channel. It is an end-time channel. We look at important events that are happening, particularly those that are preceding the coming of our Lord and Savior, Yeshua, Messiah. And today's video, this discussion, this message is concentrated on a question. Which side will you be? Will you be on the side of God, or will you be on the side of the LGBTQ agenda, which is being spearheaded by the West, spearheaded by the United States? This video is in response to a comment by Ayana. Ayana, I believe that you wanted me to comment on the LGBT, particularly whether it will succeed, the project will succeed in Africa, in Ghana. And so I just want to use this opportunity to provide an overview of the LGBT project. I call it a project, I call it a plan, I'll call it a scheme, I call it an agenda, I call it a manifesto that is being implemented in Africa, particularly the nations in Africa that have dark-skinned people. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, recently made a trip to Africa, first landed in Ghana, and then went to Zambia, and then to Tanzania. And the issue of LGBT bills came into focus. And I will first address the LGBT bill, the anti-LGBT bill in Ghana. And there's a bill pending in the Parliament of Ghana, and the bill is titled Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill. It's popularly known as the anti-LGBT bill. It means that there's a bill pending in Ghanaian Parliament that proposes to prohibit LGBT activities in Ghana. So that's why it is an anti-LGBT bill. And those who are opposing that bill are those who are supporting the LGBT community, and they are opposing the bill. So you must look at it in the context. The title is Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights. Is there a proper human sexual rights? Human sexual rights. I wouldn't go into details, but I'll refer you to the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament, where God talks about improper human sexual rights. A man lying with a man, a woman lying with a woman, a man or a woman lying with a beast, and the punishment that were implemented in the time of Moses. You can look at it in the Old Testament, and you can make your conclusion. Even if you take the Bible away, you can look at proper human sexual rights, and you can look at it from the criminal codes that were introduced into Africa by the Europeans, particularly England. There were certain activities that were considered as improper human sexual rights, and so the criminal codes in the African colonies were against that. And those laws were brought by England, a nation that is now promoting LGBTQ project in Africa. When Kamala Harris came to Africa, she talked about LGBT and talked about the fact that people's rights must be respected. And there were a lot of comments, not only from Ghana, but also from other parliaments in Africa. And we are going to go through some of these comments to see why Africans are anti-LGBT. The first comment is about cultural imposition or cultural imperialism. The fact that Europeans have imposed their culture on Africa for too long. Africans adopted English names. Even in Togo, there was a time that the water that they drank in Togo was imported from France. They imported everything from France. And this imposition, cultural imposition, is becoming too much. They adopted English names, and now you want them to adopt homosexuality. And that's why Africans are against the LGBT. The second comment from a member of parliament, I believe is from Uganda, and he said that he has watched animal rights. The parliamentarian said that he likes watching National Geographic, the TV program where they show a lot of films about animals, and he's saying that he has never seen a lion, a male lion, having sex with a male lion. He has never seen that. He has never seen a male dog having sex with a male dog, or a female dog having sex with a female dog. And so he knows about the animal kingdom, and he knows about the animal rights, and he finds it to be appalling when United States and the West is trying to impose LGBT on African nations. The Bible is very clear. Isaiah 5:20. Woe unto those who say evil is good and those who say good is evil. And so if you are saying that human beings must have sex in violation of the natural order, even in violation of the order that exists among animals, then you are saying that evil is good. And Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20 is going to judge that. The other argument is that the West have been allowed for too long to dehumanize Africans. And when we're talking about dehumanization, we are talking about a situation where Kamala Harris was holding $100 million in her hands from the United States, was going to give to African nations, and implicitly also was promoting the rise of LGBT in Africa. Is humiliation, because in Africa people saw Kamala Harris, a vice president of the United States, coming to Africa with her husband, a beautiful woman married to a handsome man. But in Africa, they were trying to force African men to marry African men and African women to marry African women to marry African women. It's very dehumanizing and hypocritical, because the African man believes in polygamy as his right, but the Americans don't believe in polygamy. If you believe in polygamy, you'll be excluded from the United States because your culture contradicts the culture of the United States. And how come that the West is trying to impose a culture on African nations? You have to remember the prophet Daniel. He was under captivity, but there's one thing that he did. He always maintained his culture, the supremacy of his culture. He did not want to eat food offered to idols. They changed his name. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they changed their names to the names of gods, but they remembered their creator. They were on the side of God. They were not on the side of kings, human kings. They were not on the side of the culture of the day. They were on the side of God who created them. And they will not eat food offered to idols. And so as I'm talking about food offered to idols, let's look at the LGBT project and how it will fit into Africa. I will select several African countries as a point of reference. The LGBT project will not work in Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous black country in the world, the most populous black country in Africa. Nigeria has a substantial Muslim population. It also has Christian population. Nigeria has a terrorist organization called Boko Haram. Boko Haram is against anything Western. They were bombing schools and churches. So how do you expect Boko Haram to react to Nigeria adopting homosexuality in Nigeria? Would you want Nigeria to be subjected to so many terrorist attacks? So LGBT will not work in Nigeria. In Kenya, they have opposed LGBT project in Kenya. They rejected it when Barack Obama went to Kenya. Barack's father is from Kenya. But they told him point blank that American culture is different from African culture, different from Kenyan culture. They rejected it then, and I believe that they will reject it. They will reject it again. And Zambia, the country of Kenneth Kaunda, a proud man, one of the architects of African freedom, African emancipation, having been subjected to cultural imperialism, neo-colonialism from Europe and from the United States. And his country, Zambia, I don't believe that they will profess, they will support and acquiesce in the LGBT agenda. South Africa is very different. There are countries in Africa that used to be settler colonies. When I say settler colonies, I'm talking about nations where Europeans chose to settle. They didn't just come to trade, they decided to settle in those nations. Zimbabwe is one of them, Kenya is one of them, and South Africa is one of them. The settler colonies were different because they were influenced more by European culture. Regardless of that, Rhodesia, when it became Zimbabwe, did not tolerate homosexuality, did not tolerate LGBTQ project. Mugabe was a vehement opponent of LGBT project. Uhuru Kenyatta was an opponent of LGBT agenda, and the president government in Kenya will not support that. South Africa is very different. It's one of the few nations that have supported same-sex marriage, and South Africans have the right to carry guns. And so their culture and politics is different from other African nations. And I saw Julius Malema. Somebody sent a video of him to me. He was wearing the flags of the LGBT, the rainbow flag, and he's saying that LGBT is African culture. I'm not sure whether he was drunk. I'm not sure whether he was sober at that time. But when he says that LGBT is African culture, he expressed his ignorance and arrogance. He cannot speak for the rest of Africa. Definitely he can speak for South Africa because they have same-sex marriage, and probably they will be interested in expanding it to include LGBT and the project. Ghana. Ghana is interesting because it was the first African nation to get independence. And the Europeans believe that if LGBT penetrates Ghana, then it will be easy to penetrate other parts of the continent. I think they are lying and they are liars, and they are ignorant about African politics, African culture. Ghana is a strong Christian nation, and it also has a strong Muslim community, and both sides oppose homosexuality, and they are strong supporter of the bill to prohibit homosexuality in Ghana. The bill is called Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values. Every year there's American presidential election. The president talks about American values. They have values that they cherish, and they contest for election to promote those values. Definitely LGBTQ is an American value, and they promote it. But Africans, Ghanaians, they also have their values, and this bill in Ghana is to promote Ghanaian family values. At least this is what the heading of the bill talks about. The president of Ghana, I don't think he supports LGBT because he has said that LGBT activity will not occur under his watch. It will not occur under his presidency. And he has until 2024 to leave office. And so I believe that up until 2024, he will not support LGBT legalization in Ghana. Even if he does support it, the Ghanaian parliament will not support legalization of LGBT agenda in Ghana, because any parliamentarian who votes for a bill legalizing LGBT will lose elections, and they will not want to lose election. So to answer your comment, Ayana, Ghana is not changing her stand because Kamala Harris came to Ghana. Ghanaians are very proud people. They have intelligent people, and they are Christians. And as a result of that, they wouldn't want to be on the side of LGBT. They want to be on the side of God. I want to remind you that the Anglican Church in Ghana, they oppose a directive from the Anglican Church in America to endorse same-sex marriage. The Anglican Church in Ghana said, no, we are not going to follow the Anglican Church in other nations to endorse same-sex marriage. So Ghanaians are very proud. Africans are very proud of their heritage. You remember the first nation to get independence from in Africa was Ghana. They are very proud. It's a nation that was led by Kwame Nkrumah, who was a no-nonsense president and would not tolerate any imposition of cultural values, particularly that are anathema to the Constitution of Ghana and also repugnant to Ghanaian values. That's why the Ghanaian bill is called Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values. There are people who support LGBT projects in Africa, and they may be presidents, they may be parliamentarians, and let us talk about why they will support that. The first one is money. Money talks. And so definitely people can bribe other people with money, and money can change people's opinion. Some people are greedy. They will be on the side of money before they go to the side of God. Some of them worship God and mammon. So money is one inducement. The second inducement is visa. We are not going to give you a visa to go to England, go to Denmark, go to Australia, because you are a parliamentarian, you don't support LGBT project. And so if there are some people who want to get visa, they think that the visa to enter an LGBT accepting European nation is more important than a visa to enter the kingdom of heaven. If they are so stupid, they will probably choose to be on the side of LGBT. The other inducement is aid, AID. And a friend of mine talked about AIDS. He was trying to compare aid from foreign government with AIDS in the sense that it's an infection. If you allow somebody to give you aid, $100 million or even $1 billion, and infect you with their cultural values, that is repugnant to your own values, then I think that you don't believe in your own cultural values. So they can bring money, and I think some government will accept the money, but they will still pass the law prescribing LGBT. And if you take the case of Uganda, the president of Uganda has made it very clear that they can take their aid, they can take their money, and they still pass the anti-LGBT law. The other thing that they can use to induce Africans to pass a pro-LGBT law is lobbying. And the lobbyists are very powerful, they have money. I understand that a gentleman by name Andrew Solomon, he is internationally known for LGBT activism. I understand he came to Ghana, and he went to the president office, a former president, a former president who had written a book, and the book was endorsed by Andrew Solomon, a known global gay activist. I call this as lobbying, but now in Africa, people's eyes are open. You cannot bribe a president, You cannot bribe a Speaker of Parliament for them to pass a law promoting same-sex marriage or promoting LGBT activities. Going back to the Ghana bill, promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. There are several provisions. One of them is the acts. If you engage in an act, LGBT act of gayism, lesbianism, queerism, that act alone attracts or will attract a jail term of 3 to 5 years. The bill will also prohibit people from giving you a platform to promote LGBT. So you cannot go on the radio, you cannot promote LGBT activities on a platform, or in the internet, blog, anything in Ghana. You will be jailed. And most importantly, the bill will also criminalize advocacy of LGBT. So you cannot be an advocate for LGBTQ activities in Ghana. And it means that if you are an NGO, you cannot advocate for lesbianism in Ghana. If the bill is passed, and I believe the bill will pass, it may pass before the next elections scheduled for 2024, because politicians will have to clean themselves to show that they are with the people, majority of Ghanaians. If you conduct a valid poll, majority of Ghanaians are against LGBT, and there are few of them who support it because they are members of the LGBT by their own voluntary will. Some of them also have been coerced. Coerced in the sense that somebody is paying for the LGBTQ activities. I remember talking to someone, a man who transgendered into a woman, and she went outside of Ghana to an European country to get a surgery to do the transgender, very expensive surgery. Somebody sponsored this man to transgender, and the operation was videotaped, and the videotape was circulated. And there's a part of Accra, and they are aware of this. They are aware of this person, the first person to transgender in Ghana. I will add that Ghanaians are very conservative, and they take the law into their hands. I'll give you several examples. You can steal an item worth $10, and vigilantes in Ghana can beat you and even kill you if you are not lucky. And it's possible that if anybody engages in LGBT activity, some vigilantes will take the law into their hands. And it's not surprising, because even in the United States, a nation that has legalized same-sex marriage and is also promoting LGBT activism over the world, there are some people who, quote unquote, are homophobic, if that word is the right word to do, and they attack people who are LGBT. They attack them. The attack has happened in America, happened in Britain, and it wouldn't be surprised if it happens in African nation. LGBT is becoming very controversial for those supporting it and also for those who are against it. You remember what happened in Nashville, Tennessee, when somebody went to a school and killed people. And so violence is coming from both sides, those in support of LGBT and those against LGBT. The question we ask yourself now, will you be on the side of God or you will be on the side of LGBT? That's your choice. And judgment comes soon and you will answer for yourself. And you have to remember that in the kingdom Yeshua, there's nothing like human rights. It is God rights. It is God who created the earth. And my last point to Julius Malemba from South Africa, who is supporting LGBT. You have to remember that when we're talking about human rights, the West has been very hypocritical. There was a bill that was pending in U.S. Congress, Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act, a law that will impose economic sanctions on South Africa as a result of apartheid, which is a human rights issue. That law was vetoed by President Ronald Reagan, American president at that time, because he didn't see any reason to promote human rights for black people in South Africa. It was only when the U.S. Congress overrode the presidential veto that the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act was passed. And so many people, including African Americans, protested over the world. A gentleman by name Rondell Robinson, founder of Trans-African Forum, he protested in the United States for South Africa to get her freedom, for America to recognize the rights, the human rights of a black person. And now Julius Malemba, whoever he is, leader of EFF, is supporting LGBT as human rights in South Africa. And he's saying that it's an African value. It's up to him. He can represent his own, but he cannot represent the rest of the African continent. The African continent. And I believe those who call themselves black Hebrews, I believe they will be on the side of God rather than being on the side of the LGBT project. Thank you for this message.